Gonna live a little.
Oh, live a little. I don't know. I don't know how to start this thing, Brakken. Brakken, let's put it in your hands, brother.
You put it in my hands?
Yep.
Well, I'm going to describe then. This was not planned, but since you're putting it in my hands, I'm going to describe a situation that most people listening to this go through far too often, which is returning to a training plan after some time away. Either away due to injury, life, laziness, lack of motivation. So I'm on week 3 now. Planned break, yes. I'm on week 3 of following a script and of working in a progressive nature. And so I'm right in the sweet spot of feeling really fatigued and everything bothering me.
Okay, I'm listening.
Right in the sweet spot. Well, the first week or so is exciting. And then week 4, 5, 6, fitness starts to noticeably improve. But week 2, 3, 4 generally just kind of sucks. And you start to question everything you're doing. And I'm right dead smack in that right now.
Do you know what's interesting about that? When athletes I work with take a prescribed recovery, they've worked really hard for a period of time. It's either culminated with an A race or it's just time for a break. I believe in roughly 2 breaks a year. And I find once they hit week 3 back to training, if they've been really consistent before their break, week 3, they start clicking again. They're like, I feel great. I am crushing it. I feel like my old self. And then I feel fresh and available and fit. But it's the opposite sort of if you had a spotty lead in or had inconsistent training and then get back to consistent training for the first time. Then what you're talking about is horrifyingly real. You notice the difference?
Yes. It's interesting because you're right about that. Like week 3-ish is when you get to sit back into whatever chair you've built.
Correct.
And let that support you. Like whatever you've built, that's when it shows up to you, week 2, week 3. And it's been interesting for me to sit back into that chair. It's like a trust fall and find out what's waiting. And I've had interesting things waiting for me, Kirk.
Okay.
My body knows how to run, right? That hasn't left. It's gotten worse at running slow. I feel the worst on my recovery and easy runs if I'm dawdling. Okay, there's some sort of learned efficiency at going slow that I'm worse at right now. Like my body's best when I'm doing something up tempo. Something, let's call it aerobic threshold or faster. I feel the best. I have the least amount of aches and pains. I'm running the best at that. But I'm creaky and awkward when I'm running slow. And that's a weird feeling. What do you make of that?
I guess 80-20 running is BS, and it should be like 50-50 running for Brakken Kraker. That's what I think. I'm kidding. You know what, though?
It was to the point last week where I considered doing like 50 by 100 at marathon pace as my easy run.
It's the dumbest,
so that my
it's the
knees
dumbest
and hips
thing I've
didn't
ever
ache.
heard.
That's not even dumb.
That is so dumb. Okay. There's the difference here is when you run slow for you, the ground contact time becomes extended when you're inefficient at running slow. So you spend more time with your foot in contact with the ground, which I think actually increases like the braking and recoil effect. And once you become efficient at sort of fluttling along at a slow pace efficiently, you take less damage.
Fluttling.
Don't you think that's probably what it comes down to? I would think.
Yeah. And I don't know that word. I've never heard that before, but it sums it up perfectly. Fluttling.
Yeah, a little fluddle action for your little feeties.
That's good.
Yeah.
And to your point, I feel better further into my recovery runs. By the end of it, I have a rhythm going. At the beginning, it's like some marionettist is controlling my body and they're not great at it.
I don't think the word marionettist has ever been said on this podcast before after all these years. So good job.
Now it has. Thank you. The other thing waiting has been downhills. My downhills have felt all right. My uphills have felt all right. Flat running has felt really awkward. So anyway, I'm in the middle of that. Things are making me more sore than they should. And yet there's glimpses that it's waiting there if I can just get through this nasty outer crust. So I'm almost there, Kirk. Almost back to just roll out of bed and don't think about it.
And it could be tomorrow. That's where you're at with this. It could be literally tomorrow you put your shoes on and you're like, well, it's there. Suddenly it's there. That's how like fine of a line we're in this like recovery adaptation cycle when you start ramping training back up. Or you could be in for another week of absolute dragging your feet and feeling terrible. It's hard to say, but when it happens, it'll be out of nowhere. It may be on a day in which you don't even want to run or feel motivated to, and you'll go put your shoes on and be like, why am I floating today? Be like, aha, now my chair is there for the trust fall. It just takes a little bit of time. You reminded me of something, and then we're going to talk about the Olympic trials. We're just going to break it down just a little bit for you guys before we get into our topic. But I wanted to bring something up after you started talking about slow running and whatever. So I am in I wouldn't say a peaking phase, to be honest with you right now, but I have 2 races. I had the Grandma's Half a week and a half ago, and I have the Afton 25K trail race this weekend. And I have never been running slower in my life. Not in my life, I should say, in recent times in my recovery work, because the big swings require that I run even slower, and my heart rate is responding as if there's duress in my system. And so running 15, 20, 30 seconds per mile slower on recovery work has been what I've been doing. And it's because I'm just watching my metabolic metrics and saying, hey, your body you need to go slower today. And so many people, and this is going to come into our conversation on the topic, but it's easy to get into your head about it. It's easy to say my recovery metrics are getting slower on those workouts. I'm getting worse. When in fact, we've touched on this before in conversation, but usually when I'm in the best training cycle and I'm knocking races out of the park, the discrepancy between big efforts and slower, easy efforts is even larger. And so my recovery run metrics have just been sludge. And know what that means? It means that my systems are working the way they should and I'm ready to run hard again when it counts. So don't let, when you are in racing competition phase is what I'm getting at, those recovery runs should be slowed way down if necessary to recover from what you've done and prepare for what you're going to do. And a lot of times in base phase, my recovery runs can be 30 seconds a mile faster with the same heart rate response. But the hit to my system and the big workouts and the big races aren't nearly as high. And so I just think as we're in midsummer, in mid-competition phase for a lot of people, big discrepancy between hard days and easy days. And if your recovery run metrics suck, good. Keep them sucking and allow that to be, because you'll be available for when it matters next. And I've just been noticing that since my half, and now I have another race in a few days. And so it's just top of mind for me. And I think a lot of people deal with that. And so you saying running slow just reminded me, run slow when you should.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's exactly right. If you are balancing out the slow work with fast work, you're going to be fine. And generally, if you have to slow down a little bit in the middle of your big phase, you're about to get really fast. That seems to be what's happening. And then to wrap up this whole conversation, your point with it could happen any day. Last Tuesday, I set out to do 8 to 10 by 3 minutes on the treadmill at 6% incline. And I was going to do a 10-minute warm-up. And I ended up watching some races. And at 18 minutes, I'd say, shoot, and just pause it and start the workout. And that to me was the first sign that it's coming around. When you accidentally exceed your warm-up time because you don't notice that you're running, because you're into whatever you're doing. That doesn't happen to me very often. Usually it's if I have 1,000-meter intervals to do, I am watching my clock from 7 minutes to 8 minutes to 9 so I can stop it right at 10 flat and say I got 10 minutes in. And here I was at 18 minutes and my body was just doing its thing without thinking about it. So that was sign number 1 that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, if only we had the U.S. Olympic trials to watch every week while we were either cross-training or on the treadmill. That sure would make life better, wouldn't it? And speaking of the trials...
Sure would.
So we did a sort of a bad job of wrapping up our last training Tuesday, saying, what do you think is going to happen? Any collegians going to get in? And we sort of talked our predictions very quickly. but it all came to fruition this last week. I watched Peacock every single night from 7 until 9:30. It became the mainstay, like if it were the Olympic Games. And so I watched every single race unfold and then watched many twice when I was cross-training. So I'll kick it to you. What was your overall, and I have thoughts, what was your overall take of the games themselves, the Olympic trials, I should say, the trials themselves?
My overall take was that it is fascinating to watch the difference in levels show up during races, where there are people who are racing to get into the mix and people who are biding their time and waiting to make a gigantic move. And we saw it from Perrier St. Pierre and Elise Cranny and Grant Fisher, people who were just there. And then the moment they decided it was time to go would open up 10, 20 meters like in seconds. And they're just on an entirely different playing field than everyone else. And it's crazy that when you have the best of the best together, there still seems to be a bigger gap between first or second and third or fourth than there is from third or fourth to 20th. Like at the top of everything, there are these genetic anomalies, also combined with work and toughness and all that. But there are people that are just special at the top of every sport that are the gap between them and the rest is always bigger than the rest and the rest of the rest. And that fascinates me.
Yeah, I agree with that. The cream rises to the top, and you realize there are so many levels to everything. And when the true players make a decision, it's decisive. No gap turns into 20 and 50 meters, like you said, and you realize, okay, the men are with the boys or the women are with the girls, so to speak. But on that account, the 20 to 23 age demographic is like ruling the United States distance running. It's absolutely astounding. The old guard doesn't exist or hardly exists at the top of this sport anymore. We have either new guard or like one deviation past new guard. They were the new guard a few years ago. Like the amount of youth that is wedging their way into the top of our sport is absolutely astounding. There could be 6 to 8 collegians in the endurance space alone representing the U.S., depending on how it shakes out with world rankings. That's insane. We thought maybe one would get through, maybe 2. There might be 8 or more on both sides, men and women. That's astounding.
There's almost one per event.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I found that interesting.
So then I have a follow-up to that, though.
Yeah.
And the follow-up is that even at the high end, 2 of the people that fell into that, Cole Hocker and Ellie Perrier St. Pierre, both of them showed that even at the highest end, the rules of fitness are still the rules of fitness, that you only have so many matches to burn, and you're generally not aware when you've burned your last one until you reach to strike another one, and there's nothing there. And Cole Hocker and Ellie Perrier St. Pierre both stated that they didn't want to take anything except first place. Even in their prelims, they both talked about that post-race. I want to win everything here. I'm locked in. And they both used fairly huge moves in the prelims of the 1500 and the 5K when they didn't have to.
Yep.
Cole Hocker closed his 5K prelim in 4 flat for the last 1,600 meters, which is just shy of a mile. Call it a 4:01 mile, and he closed in like 53 or 54 seconds the last 400. And he didn't need to. He just needed to be like top 6 or 7, but he wanted to make a statement. And Perrier St. Pierre did the same thing in her 5,000, and they did it in their 1,500 prelims, and then they won their 1,500 finals, and they get to the 5K, and both of them came up a little short. Now, Perrier St. Pierre still made it, but she looked tired at the end of the 1,500, not the 5K, the 1,500, and got out kicked for the first time we saw her tired all weekend. And then Cole Hocker, the racing starts in the 5K, and Grant Fisher ran 3:59 the last 4 laps, 1 second faster than Cole. And yet what Cole had done 2 days prior, but Cole was dropped the moment that move got made. And it was interesting that they came in with they both said, I've never been this fit in my entire life. And we've talked about this before, that when you come in with more fitness than you've ever had, the biggest issue people have is generally they forget the rules of racing. You expect it to be easy, or you expect it to just destroy everyone, and that the rules of racing still apply. And both of them came up one race shy for the weekend. And that was interesting to watch the best in the country still make that same mistake.
Yeah, you call it making a statement. I call it letting your ego get in the way. Cole Hawker felt like he came with something to prove because he'd had a tough few years with injury. It's astounding. Now, granted, he looked like the man in the 1500. He floundered in the 5K.
Yep.
After saying he was the most fit he's ever been, it's astounding to me how important it still is for these top-level athletes who know better to cross the tape first in a semifinal or quarterfinal. That doesn't matter. I would bet my bank account if Cole Hawker skimmed in all trials or semifinals, in all events, he would have qualified on the 5K team and had juice. Even if he still ran the same 1,500-meter final, he would have then probably qualified in the 5K final as well. He just burned a couple matches too early. And Perrier St. Pierre is human. Still ran 3:55 or 56, which is astounding.
So fast.
So she came out all right.
Yeah.
She's going in both, but I agree with you. The fittest person doesn't always win. And I think there should be comfort and discomfort in knowing that, depending on which side of that coin you fall on when you toe the line.
When you suddenly have more money than you've ever had before, there's only two things that happen. You get more stingy with it, or you spend it like it'll never be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they both spent their money like they had a bottomless credit card. And in their defense, they did. Right up until they didn't. Okay, what do they run? 2 5Ks, 3 1500s.
Yep.
They ran 5 races that weekend, and they both made it he made it 3/4 of the way through the 5th race, and she made it 3/4, more, like 7/8 of the way through the 5th race. Like, they almost did it, but they just spent a little too much on something they didn't need.
Yeah.
And it's not taking anything away from them. They're so phenomenal. They're 2 of my favorite athletes to watch. But it's just a great reminder that when you come in with bigger fitness than you've ever had, you don't get to be more aggressive than you need to be.
Yep. Didn't make any sense to me.
You get to save it and use it exactly as needed. Yeah, yeah. And even the commentators were kind of praising it a little bit. Like, they're on another level. They're showing the field that there's no chance. Look at how easy it was for them. It's like, yeah, maybe right now, but we all know what day 2 can feel like. And they're on day 9.
It was very interesting. Just so we move this along, the Parkers, Parker Wolf and Parker Valby. I don't think I could respect Parker Valby more for taking control. And actually, she'll probably get in, too, in the 10K, would be my guess. And she may go in the 5 if Ellie Perrier St. Pierre doesn't declare, which it sounds like. So Parker Valby could be going in both events, which I think she should still compete in probably one. And then Parker Wolf, it sounds like he's going to shake out right on the bubble of the world rankings, and it's going to literally come down to within a ranking or two. So Graham Blanks may go in. But just like confirming, like, I don't know, they are who we thought they were. Like, we have a scary 8 to 12 years with Parker Valby or more. Unbelievable. Just like nothing phases that woman. It's incredible to watch her run, knowing that she's going to get eaten up by the pack of wolves behind her and still sacrificing herself. And she almost did have to get sacrificed in the 10K. It's just such good watching. It's great.
Yeah. So I'll start with Valby. Parker Valby looked human for the first time we've ever seen in the 5K. She got to the front, did her thing in the prelims, and then when Perrier St. Pierre went around her with Carissa in the prelim and just decided it's over, she had a look on her face I've never seen. Like, she saw the next level and realized these monsters are more monstrous than I realized. And that would shake you to your core if you have one bullet to fire and someone else's bullet is bigger, faster, and more explosive.
Yeah.
You're like, what do I even do here? And she came out in the 10K and did it again. and then did it better. And that right there is all you need to know about her. That she shot her best shot, was clearly found lacking, and said, okay, let's run it back. That is such a difficult thing to do as an athlete, especially in an individual sport where there's no one around you to help you. And you can't just be like, hey, I'm off shooting today, I'm just going to rebound and play great defense. Like, there's no version of that. You have to be on your offense. And she just stuck to it and did it even better. And then seemed to have learned something and found a kick at the end and now kicked a professional runner. It was just astounding, her mental toughness and progression just in one weekend.
The irony of it all. Now, I think she's running more now than she has in the past, right? We know Parker Valby to be 3 days of running-ish, 4 days cross-training in between. Well, right, and so you have to start asking the question. So she's raced so much this year. I mean, the fact she's still pumping this out is incredible. And you could argue that her durability is as high or higher than anybody who's been running 100-plus mile weeks. And then you try to make sense of that somebody with the lowest mileage in her legs out of all of the athletes that participated probably in the 1,500 meters and up on both men's and women's side shows up time and time again available to race. And then you try to make sense of all that and be like, okay, so is it because she is available, because she's not running too much, or is it because it's who she is, it's despite of, not because of? It's just interesting thing to make sense of, to still show up after all those races.
Like, is she the most talented person there and it's not even close? Or has she maximized her cross training to get the most out of her talent? The interesting thing with this, and you're right with is this because of or despite of? We never can answer that because we can't see the alternate her in a different universe doing it differently. But she runs like a triathlete, where she has a little hitch in her gait. She's very arm heavy. She really churns with her arms. That's the classic triathlete running. That's what we see with all triathletes, is they run like triathletes because they've used their arms differently than runners, and they've spent a little less time running and a lot more time running under duress, and you just use different mechanics with that. She has that stride, and she is the biggest cross trainer there. It's interesting to me to see how those things manifest.
I have two things. I agree with that. And I have two things I want to touch on real quick, and then we should move on, is how do you navigate the month between the trials and the games? For somebody like a Valby, for somebody like a Purrier St. Pierre, Elise Cranny, Carissa Schweitzer, I can go on and on. Yes. Anyways, I can keep listing names, but you've just ran a bunch of races within 7 days, 7 to 9 days, this huge, huge stimulus. And now you say, okay, I got to go race at the Olympics in 4 weeks. I'm going to return to training as hard as ever. I would guarantee these coaches are great coaches, I would assume. This is probably a down week for them. They're as hungry as they've ever been, and I bet you they are deloading completely. They need to have a reset before they just sharpen again into the Olympics. I don't know how you would handle it perfectly, but my mind as a coach starts going. Like, what do you do with those athletes who've just over-raced for an entire week? It's an interesting puzzle piece moving situation. What would you do?
Well, I've explored as much as a human can explore what professional coaches do. Maybe that's giving myself a bit more credit than I do, but as much as you'd really want to read about the high-level coaches and listen to their talks, I have. And I have two very firm beliefs on coaching pro athletes. The first belief is that the philosophy, the training, science, and methodology of coaching pro athletes is far easier than coaching high school or college or everyday athletes. They are almost all type A people who will just drive after it, do what's told, be fine with micro adjustments, run the same workout day in, day out for years. Just give them the best stimulus and let them take it.
Right.
I think from that end, coaching pro athletes is very simple. And I think that handling their egos, their emotions, keeping them healthy, and in particular, peaking for championship blocks is far more difficult than any other form of coaching out there. I think it's the easiest and the hardest version of coaching all wrapped into one. I think for like 8 months out of the year, it's the easiest form of coaching physically, just methodology. But going from trials to the Olympics and being good enough to get through one and sharp enough to maximize at the other, I think is insanely difficult. So I just want to give them all a shout out for that, because a lot of people are like, yeah, if you gave me the 10 most talented people on the planet, I could get an Olympian too. Yes, you could. But could you get that Olympian to medal? And that is where the voodoo comes into play. So this is where in the trials we were talking that the NCAA athletes have raced so much more and they have a leg up on the pros right now. But now the tables turn, the pros have a leg up. They didn't race so much. They had this in plan. Now they get to go into their sharpening phase where the NCAA athletes who got through, now it's like, how do we hang on and still try to squeeze another drop of fitness out? I think that's incredibly difficult. So I think that the pros now have a huge advantage over the collegians.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. Yeah, they kept saying we were waffling over collegiates or collegians in the last episode, and then listening to the trials, it was always collegians by the commentators. So that we got put in our place.
I say collegiate every time, and my brain wants to say collegians, and my mouth doesn't do it.
Well, and that's what you talking about the collegians like Parker Wolf, Parker Valby, like they semi-peak for their conference meet. Then they have to run trials at Nats, and then they go to Nats and peak there. Then 2 weeks later, they have to somehow run out of their minds again to qualify for the Olympic team, and they do. How many times can you rinse and repeat that cycle before you show up on race day and you go, shoot, it's gone? Because that will happen if it's not done right. So I err on the side of caution as a coach with the collegians being like, all right, we're going to chill this week. Like, as in, we're going to reduce, volume's going to be low, just some very short, sharp sessions, enough to perk you back up, and then we'll figure it out the next 3 weeks leading in. But, like, I'd be so cautious. You want to just double down right now, but you can't. And you're right, the pros can double down through the Olympics for the most part. It'll be interesting to watch it play out. Last thing I wanted to touch on with the Olympic trials then is we talk about what system is best. What system is the best system? You have the red tape of the committee system, like the East Africans and the Kenyans, who sometimes a Kenyan can go win their Olympic trials and then still get left off the team because the committee says, you know what, history will repeat itself and we want this guy instead. And you're left scratching your head, right? Like, the system is flawed. There's red tape in politics and seniority, and sometimes, like, some committees, folks, just choose their athletes based on body of work. And then you have the more common system, the European systems in general, the Brits, the Americans, Canadians that run, I think, a modified system. But nonetheless, you have somebody like a Thing Mo, who is probably our only chance at a medal in the 800 meters at the Olympics, fall. And granted, she was rusty. Granted, she was under-raced. And granted, her race acumen was low going into it. So you could argue it's her fault, but it's not. You can't predict a fall. Anyways, what's the right way to approach it? Like, can we just pick and choose our battles as Americans and be like, you know what, a Thing Mo, like, you get through because of what you've done in the past? Or as cut and dry as our system is it the right system or is it not? I think is just an interesting hole to dive into.
I think this is an unwinnable conversation because both sides are correct.
Yeah.
Our Olympic trial system guarantees equity and fairness.
Yeah.
While guaranteeing the best person to get through may not get through. Whereas the committee-based style, where you get to choose who really belongs there, who gives us the best chance, guarantees it's unfair, and also can sometimes guarantee that you get the best people there despite hurting others' feelings. And it was very interesting for us watching last night. So we finish up the Olympic trials for the track and field events, and right away it cut to gymnastics. And as most listeners know, I grew up in a gymnastics home. My sister was on Team USA. My mom coached for decades. All of us did gymnastics up until a certain point. I did it my sister through like 18. I did it through 13. My brother through 11. My younger sister through like 10 or 9. Anyway, so we have decades of gymnastics in this home. So we just kept watching, and we knew some people there and on the committee or judges and announcers. So it felt very like personal to watch this thing. And it happened right up by you, Kirk. It was in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
Target Center, I think.
It was, yeah, close. I didn't realize that until it came on. It said Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've been in the dark. I was like, that's happening right down the street. It's wild. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Idiot.
So anyway, I don't know if you watched at all, but the way that their system works is they have the trials. Whoever outright wins the all-around score is on the team, and then the committee selects the next 5 individuals. So it finished. They crowned the champion, and then the camera shifted and showed the committee walking out of the facility into the back room to debate. And right there in that moment, it just hit me that someone's going to get screwed over. As soon as you watch a committee walk away, you realize this opens the door for nonsense to happen. Even if no nonsense is going to happen, it just felt inherently unfair watching in the moment that someone here placed higher than someone that they're going to pick. And they're going to have great logic for picking that person, but as soon as humans are involved in it, someone is going to get screwed over.
So what matters more, sending the actual best team or screwing somebody over? That is the question. Is it a dog-eat-dog situation, or do we have compassion, heart, and empathy and morals here in the United States, which is very questionable across the board?
Yeah, I think we're on the verge of not having morals in the United States across the board. But we can cling to them because I believe that in other countries, other systems would be more appropriate. I believe that in watching this, cemented this in my mind. The U.S. Olympic trials encapsulate the American dream. There's entire courses in college about what is the American dream. And you explore this, and by the end of it, you have to write a paper trying to encapsulate what the American dream truly is. And I think all you'd have to do is watch the Olympic trials. That is the American dream. That anyone with the right amount of work, opportunity, and luck can be there. And it doesn't matter if someone's bad, like a thing Mo should be there. She deserves it the most. And yet she had the same opportunity as everyone else and didn't get through. And so at least in our trials system, you can look at it and say, if I'm being honest, it's on me. I didn't get through. I had an opportunity to race my way onto the team like everyone else. And even if something unfair happened, if I had been positioned differently, I could have run in lane 2 the entire time. I had the opportunity to have a fair chance, just like everyone else did, rather than I did everything right and someone else decided I didn't belong there. So I believe our system is correct. I just don't know if it's best, but I think it's correct for our nation.
I don't disagree. I'm just wondering if there is like a middle ground that fits, both parts. Like you mentioned, the first gymnast goes through and then the committee decides. Is like a 2 is guaranteed through and the third is up, and everybody knows the game. It's 2 and through, and third becomes a selection, and your trials weights in heavily. Or like would that seem fair suddenly if it's like a hybrid of the two, right? For exceptions, illness, falls, who knows what? I don't know. Like, is there a better way to do it? And is sending the best team to the Olympics necessary? Is that the ultimate goal, or is that not what it represents? It represents the American dream, like you mentioned. There's an argument to be made for that as well, and then this whole conversation is null and void. So you could take it a couple directions, but maybe a hybrid approach would make sense until you take third place and don't get
I think
picked.
A hybrid approach makes sense.
Yeah.
Correct. I think the hybrid approach is what World Championships does, which is if you are the reigning champ in an event, your country is allotted 4 slots. That's a wild card, a freebie in. You have the world champ, you are automatically guaranteed a spot. You can qualify 3 more spots out of that. And I think that's where it lies. Where if you have someone who's just a world beater, you get a wild card for that event, and your committee should use it on that person.
It's not a bad
I think
idea.
that's the best way. You still have these trials that are unimpeachable. They are beyond reproach. If you are top 3, you go. I don't care if you've never run well in your life before. American Dream, you've earned it. But we also have our wild card. And we're putting a thing Mo in because she in 6 weeks could turn around and win the whole thing. Yeah, let's send her. That's what I think the perfect system is. I love the World Championship qualifying system.
Well, I think that would also put pressure in a good way on athletes to show up and compete at the world events, whether it's world indoors or world outdoors. For example, a thing Mo didn't show up to either this last year. And let's say in that system, let's say she goes and wins. That feels like a fail-safe for all of the top performers in their events to have a free pass and a +1 to the Olympic Games because they run the same amount of weight, other than the Olympics only happen every 4 years and the World Champs happen every year. So I could see it's probably not going to change. I don't know. It's just worth it. It's just an interesting discussion. I'm sure we could split it apart more if we wanted to. I don't think we need to, but it just had me thinking about that after the fall in the 800.
Yeah.
And I saw...
Yeah. And I think what that would do is you take your your Olympic champion or potential, and you allow them to avoid the preliminary hassle of all the trials we just talked about, double peaking and all that. You get to say, listen, you've earned, by winning world championships or the last Olympics, you've earned the right to prepare for an Olympic gold medal here. You don't have to go through the trials. You've earned it. You're in. We're going to prove it with the rest of them. You just peak for this because you're our golden goose. And I don't think anyone could argue with that because they've proved it. I've already won a title. I'm going to win this for our country. Just leave me to my own devices and I'll be there and I'll be ready. But our backup is we have our trials for 3 people who are fit right now and they get to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Those are the things that keep me up at night, Brakken. All of this. It's unbelievable.
That's better than other things.
I did see Josh Kerr fell in one of the semis or finals, and I didn't see what they did with that.
Did he?
Yes, I saw something.
I saw Whiteman had an issue.
Whiteman didn't show up to race because of an injury, and then I thought I saw a picture of Kerr on his back on the track, unless it was out of context. But I'm pretty sure I saw that. I didn't know the outcome of that, though, but somebody could probably fill me in. I had a hard time finding those races on YouTube. I tried to find them this morning, but no luck. So, all right, should we
But that's
wrap?
the situation, right?
What?
World athletic fans want to see Kerr and Ingebrigtsen. They want to see that. World athletic fans want to see a thing Mo and Keeley and Morat. They want to see those things. And so if the whole world wants it, should we keep the American dream from getting in the way of that? I don't know.
I don't know either. Are we going to have enough time to chat out what we wanted to chat out today?
Yeah, let's do it quickly.
All right. Why don't you lead the way? This is your idea.
Okay. So we have this time of year we've talked about where it's hard to judge your fitness because it's generally hot and humid, most places that are listening to this. If it's not, congratulations. If you're in a place that's even hotter and more humid than us and you laugh at us, then my condolences, but you choose to live there. So it's really hard to decide what your fitness is. And you and I have been hearing this from athletes and seeing this from athletes, people who right now are either overconfident and underperform in races or second guess their fitness, in particular their pacing leading up to events, and then surprise themselves and outkick their coverage on race day. So the question is, when we're not sure about our fitness, or we're super confident in our fitness, or we just need to check in on what do we actually have in our toolbox right now, how do you go about judging that? Like, what do you do? If you, Kirk, are unsure, or me, I am unsure about my fitness, and I just recently did this, what do you do to get an accurate read on where you reside currently in this moment?
So you're not talking about how do I approach my next race if I'm either overconfident or underconfident.
Nope.
You're talking about like what workouts or fitness checks, or how do I approach my day to day to get more clarity?
Fitness check.
Is that what you're talking about? How do I get clarity?
If you think you might be anemic, we just talked about what you do. You go and get a blood panel done. If you think you might have a stress fracture, you go and get imaging done. If you think you might have no fitness or great fitness, or you don't know anything about fitness right now, what do you go get done? What is our version of a blood panel for that? How does an athlete go about getting clear answers on what they have and what they're lacking?
One last question, and then this would not take into account, like, I have a race in a week, so I need to be careful.
No, we're saying you have all the time in the world.
Okay. Well, the overconfident one is where I would actually start. The one who feels really good about their fitness. It's a really good position to be in that isn't always taken advantage of appropriately. And what I mean by that is the worry, if you're in the I'm feeling good category, is that sometimes in that phase we can swing hard when the day comes and miss slightly by over-revving, fading, and leaving time on the table. The overconfident person does that from time to time, when in reality, the confident person should go out within themselves and allow your shitness. I've never said shitness before.
I like that.
Allow your... That can be what you called your fitness the previous 3 weeks, Brakken. Anyways, you allow your fitness.
That's good.
You allow your fitness to show through the back 2/3 of the race, and you will end happy, and you will end with a performance you're proud of, and it will all come to fruition if you don't ruin it out of the gates, right? And so what I'm getting at is the overconfident person, or the confident person, I believe, should be the one who takes some risks in training with the risks of blowing up. So, okay, I'm feeling good about my fitness. Whether you have repeats or you have a threshold or tempo run, you're actually the person that either are going to prove yourself right yet again and reach for the stars and actually grab one in a training block or in a workout, or you're going to reach for the stars and fade back to the moon, and that's going to be the reality check that's good for you when it comes to your next race. And so I actually think the confident person should double down on that and either prove themselves right in training or prove themselves maybe a little bit wrong. And that way it all shakes itself out on race day. So when they toe that line, they are in the right place when the gun goes off. So that's my first take on the confident person, actually, especially if it's a newfound confidence. What do you think of my take on that?
I like it. And I'm going to go in a slightly different direction.
Good.
There's no sense in me just echoing what you said because I like it and I agree with it. But I think that when you look at what we just watched, which was the Olympic trials, confidence was king. If you came in with confidence, you sometimes can do things you're not capable of in tactical races or races where people are in a heightened emotional state because the stakes are so high. So I believe that for a pro runner coming in with confidence, that is paramount. And you do whatever it takes to give yourself an inflated confidence. I think for the everyday Joe, the best way of approaching a race is a little bit of fear. Confident in your fitness and a little afraid that you might be wrong or you might blow up, and having a tinge of holding back early, and then the confidence hits you in the second half. And so to that end, I believe that when you are feeling overconfident, that you have a huge amount of confidence in your fitness and you're feeling bulletproof, you need to put together a test, a time trial, or a workout that goes all in and only test the thing that could go wrong. So like for myself, if I'm feeling very fast or very just sharp, I need to do something long where I run the same stride over and over and over and over and over, or run something that just gets me to one state of endurance where I'm going to crack. I can't go run an up and down course for a time trial. I can't do hill reps. I can't do speed work. I can't run a 1 mile race. I need to do something over an hour that's going to get me doing the same thing over and over until it exposes whatever I'm missing in my fitness. I need to feel that so that I have the rev limiter of that fear early on in a race. Where if you're an over distance monster and you just feel like I could run all day and nothing can hurt me and I can go out hard and whatever, I think you need to do something short and fast. Choose whatever is potentially missing in your fitness and test only that thing for a splash of cold water over your fitness to temper your excitement on race day, and then maybe give you something to focus on for a little bit to round out your fitness. Because almost always we have holes in our fitness somewhere, and you need to just go all in on testing what the hole could be. That's my belief for overconfident runners.
Well, I waffled over what my first argument was going to be, and the second was time trialing and prove it. Prove it. Prove that you should be as confident as you are. Okay. But I wasn't going to take the take of, okay, so you're feeling really good about your speed? Great. Let's extend that to a 60-minute max distance time trial. I wasn't going to take it that direction. So time trial is the easy answer, really. Like, okay, if you feel fit, like use it. Let's go show. And a lot of people are getting better and better fitness through their training, and they don't know how it's going to shake out from a pure metric on a race front standpoint. So I think that's a good argument to be made. The only sort of, I'm not going to say caveat, but blemish on this conversation is I think 80% of people listening are not in this category. We always undersell our fitness.
Correct.
Most of us are going to be where we feel like apathetic at best, or we always are craving more. We're not quite where we want to be. We're underprepared for our 3-hour mountain race. We don't know we have the turnover for the 5K on the 4th of July, right? Like, so we're still talking to a small segment of the crowd. So I don't know if we want to spend a ton of time on the overconfident side, or we want to spend way more time on the underconfident side. But I think the overconfident side is simple. Prove it, right? Prove it. And you can prove it in a workout. You can prove it in a time trial. You can jump in a local race, which is a great idea this time of year. A lot of us in the north have a bunch of them. In the south, I know there's fewer in the summer, but jump in and prove it. It's simple enough. And if you misfire, then for the next race that really matters, you're going to have reset expectations, and you'll be able to nail it that way too. So that's what I think.
I think that when we're fit and confident, we tend to lean into that and brush aside the piece that could go wrong. Like, I've got this marathon coming up in Atlanta. It's the Olympic trials half a decade ago. And I'm so fit, and it's a little bit hillier, but I'm not worried about the hills because my fitness is so high. That's how we look at it. And we saw what happened to people there. So what you need to do then is go prove it. Go run the hilliest race you can find and prove to yourself that the hills don't matter. Don't go test a 10-mile flat race. That's only going to confirm your bias. Test the thing that you think doesn't matter because your strength can cover it. I believe firmly in that. Or I'm a great hilly runner, but the last 10K of my ultra is very flat. But it's fine. If I get to that point, I'll just empty the tank. Well, go run a 15K flat and see what that's like to get to the final 10K tired. Can you turn over then? Or do your hamstrings start cramping or whatever's going to happen? Like, lean into the thing that you say, that won't matter. I want to see an entire test on that won't matter thing. And then you can tell me it doesn't matter.
It's a great point. Where did we see that? In the U.S. marathon trials in the last cycle, was it? People weren't prepared for the downhills and the hills. 2 cycles ago?
The year it was in Atlanta. Yeah, 2 cycles ago.
That's what it was. And that was a big part of the conversation. People went in as fit as they could possibly be. And the ones who succeeded in their exit interviews was like, I was ready for the hills. I was prepared for the terrain. I held up and was durable. And the ones who said, I'm running a marathon flat on the roads, some of the favorites faded because of that exact thing. So you bring up a really good point there. And hey, I mean, it even gets the best of the best. You want to pivot? You want to pivot to the underconfident?
Yeah, the rest of us. The people who are like, I don't have enough time to get ready for this race. I know that. I know I'm not ready. I don't need to. And I just had someone tell me this about a time trial. He said, I don't want to run this 5K on 4th of July. I already know what it's going to tell me. I know I'm not prepared for a 5K. I'm going to have to recover afterwards to learn something I already know. Could we just do a big workout on that day that's going to get me started towards what I know I need to fix anyway? And I loved that statement and that question because it wasn't a cop-out. It wasn't, I'm afraid, so I don't want to. It's, I'm pretty sure what's going to happen, and I can tell you why, and I can tell you what I need to fix so that it doesn't happen in the future. So let's just get a start on that. And to me, I believe that's where you start. If you're not confident, and if you have enough time, I think you get right to work on that hole, but you do it in palatable chunks and you just extend it out. You never scare yourself with it early on because you already know it's not there. I can't run 20 miles right now. I'm not going to send you out to run 20 miles to prove that you can't run 20 miles. Let's go run 12, and then the next week 14, and then 16, and then 18, and then let's hope that we can arrive to 20 when we need 20 and build confidence along the way. But I don't think you scare yourself straight when you're already scared. I think you start working on building the confidence, and sometimes that takes go do a time trial of the thing you're already good at just to make yourself feel good about fitness for at least a day, and then get to work on the bad thing.
Yeah, you can go one of two directions with this, and I'll just take it the other direction, which is show up at that 5K. You kidding me? You kidding me? Skirting around that 5K because your ego can't take a bad result? But let me give you some advice here, okay? So, and I'm being slightly tongue-in-cheek, right? So where I find athletes build confidence is if you give them a specific task or they assign themselves a specific task and they accomplish it. Okay, I know I'm not fit as I want to be right now, but I know 8-minute pace for a 5K is I could do that with my eyes closed. That's very reasonable for me right now. Even though I want to run 7:30s, I just don't think I'm there yet. I'm taking something objective like the 5K. So what you do is you make rules for yourself. And I do this for athletes I coach. You know what? I'm going to show up at this 5K, and I'm running 8 minutes for my first mile. And I know I'm going to be feeling like I'm holding back, and that's okay. I already know my metric isn't going to be my result isn't going to be as good as I'd like it to be. So I might as well go out there and take control of the situation. And by that, reset my expectations. So you go out with tempered enthusiasm, with purpose. And then you say, I'm going to pick it up a little bit from there. And then you run 7:50 for your next mile. And then you pound home in 7:20, and there was a bunch in the tank, and you're like, well, it's momentum in the right direction. And so for the people who feel unprepared, you go out, you make a decision before you even toe the line to go out controlled, easy, and not just hang on for dear life the whole race. If you leave a race feeling like you made decisions throughout it, that will be kicking the rock further down the road in the positives column, in the fitness column, and the confidence column. My body did what it was told because I told it to do something I knew it could do. And then that will start to build confidence. I said I'm going to run 8-minute pace. I ran 8-minute pace. I was able to get faster. And so the exact opposite of what I recommend the confident one to do, which is take your shot and either fail or find out, I say don't take your shot. Your shot now is telling yourself to control yourself and allowing yourself not to be miserable the entire race and choosing pacing. As long as you've done it because you chose to, not because you're dying a slow death until the finish line, that feels different. And so that's what I tell the people who aren't feeling fit to do.
Can't argue with it. I can't.
Yeah.
Because we always learn, right? You win or you learn. You always learn, even from tough time trials or races. I believe that as well. Either way, I think the common thread here is that we need to have either a workout, a time trial, or a test of some sort of race that resides firmly in your con column that you can go to throughout all your training blocks and find out, where does my weakness lie right now? I know I can for me, I know I can go run a mile time trial and be within a few seconds of it no matter what I'm doing in training. But my 21-mile loop, I'm going to have minutes and minutes and minutes, maybe even a half-hour difference, depending on, have I been working my threshold in my long run or not? Have I been doing enough hills or not? Have I been doing enough muscular endurance or not? And going back to that thing that exposes me and scares me is the clearest way to have an accurate picture of my fitness. And sometimes that means doing the 21-mile loop. And other times it means do a 15-mile version of that or a 10, but it doesn't for me mean go run 12 by 400 and say, look I'm in 15 flat 5K shape. Because my strength will lie to me, but my weakness never will.
And you know what I think the best answer is for both sides? Or if you're in the middle, you're apathetic. You're like, I don't really know. It's going well, but I'm not sure. Like, I'm in about the same fitness I always am, right? I still think, even for the underconfident one, I still think the right answer may be like do whatever scares you the most. And I know that could be an ego, that could be a hit for the underconfident one. But if you say, "Oh, that I'm not so sure about," your 21-mile loop around Lake Geneva, or for most it would be something short and fast. You're the exception, not the rule. Like I could always go out and rip a fast mile. That is not the norm. I feel like, but nonetheless, it would be like, I feel great. I can go out and grind my 3-hour long runs all day. I feel so durable right now. I'm ready. But like, what's lacking? Oh, the thought of a mile. Like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And then the vice versa. I think that is probably still the answer in your training decisions when it really comes down to it, because your intuition is right. If there's a small amount of dread towards something, even if there's a little bit of excitement, if there's dread towards what task is at hand, whether it's a race or a workout, it probably means you need more of it. And it also means it would probably benefit you greatly. And there's a lot of dread with most things I do with my training. So maybe I'm making good decisions. I don't know. Or maybe dread is the right thing to feel before a big workout and before a big race for everybody. I'm not sure. But what scares you? What scares you is typically what helps you grow.
I agree. So then to wrap this up is, I think it begs the question, until when? Like that's the right logic right up until blank weeks out from when you need to actually race. How far away from a race do you stop that? Or how close can you get to race day before you stop testing or time trialing or racing the thing that scares you and start leaning into the thing that only sets you up to be confident on race day? What's your timeline for that?
It's a great question. I wouldn't have even brought that up, so I'm glad you did. I have 2 markers, 3 weeks and 10 days. We talked about it. Was it last episode or the one before? You get to the don't screw it up phase, which means like, 10 days and in, 9 days and in, like, let's just make sure we show up available.
Yeah.
But I think 3 weeks out, you can really screw up 3 weeks out, swinging too hard, overdoing something, and still come back in time to race well 3 weeks later, no matter how bad you screw it up. Heck, you could pull off marathons 3 weeks apart if you did it right and things came together. You could. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying you could. So
I'm glad you're doubling down on that.
Don't.
But you could.
So point being is 3 weeks out, I think you stop experimenting or proving to yourself or disproving yourself and get to what you know works, so you feel confident once you toe the line on race day. And then after that 10-day lead-in mark, it's kind of like, okay, well, now I don't change anything for the last 10 days because the hay is in the barn, so to speak. That would be my quick answer to that. What about you? I'm curious.
I think that you're allowed to do things that scare you right up until, same thing, 2 to 3 weeks out, but you're not allowed to do things that damage you physically and emotionally once you're like 4 to 6 weeks out.
Okay.
So if that 21-mile long run scares me and a 9-mile loop in the Kettle Moraine scares me, I can do the 9-mile loop right up until probably 12 days out because it doesn't damage me the same way. And I could get up for that effort probably back-to-back weeks. The 21-mile loop, I need a full recovery afterwards, physically and mentally. It just takes too much out of me. So I think that either way, you're right. You have to stop wherever that damage line is. All right, I can get over this and be ready to race again, both physically and mentally. So I think you're allowed to scare yourself right up until you need to go. But you can't damage yourself too close to race day.
How
and
far
that goes
out?
with confidence too. Like sometimes there's a confidence. I did that 6-mile run, Kirk, before Jacksonville. 1 week out. I did a time trial 2 weeks out and a 6-mile run 1 week out. And that 6-mile loop we had talked about, I've done this throughout my training time and I PR'd it by like 40 seconds. And I had so much confidence and my calf never fully recovered from it. Like you can damage yourself on something short and confidence boosting the same way you can on something long and scary. So deciding where is the risk, I think the risk is what you avoid as you get closer.
You think, I mean, I even think 2 weeks is cutting it too close. If it's something where you're swinging pretty hard, like I think everything is going to feel really good by the time your next race day comes around, other than once you're into the middle and the back half of the race, and then you're going to be like, crap. So 3 weeks is the safe answer, right? Wouldn't you say? I had a teammate in college who was a multi-time All-American in cross country and track, and he had himself a terrible regionals race in cross country and was the 8th runner. But they took him anyways because they knew conference. He was the 8th runner. And his way of punishing himself was we had a race on Saturday, and he was 8th. I was 7th. I was actually the one who qualified to make our national team. This is my sophomore year, but they put him in front of me anyway, so I was the alternate. And he went out and did a 20-mile long run at like 5:45 pace the next day on Sunday. Just rubbed his nose in it because he needed to prove to himself he wasn't a wimp. And do you want to know what ends up happening? He goes to nationals and takes like 13th and is our 3rd runner. And that was 13 days later. So what do we really know? I don't know. Maybe the mental confidence he needed outweighed the physical damage, whatever that provided. But I still think that was a dumb move, and I still think it's 3 weeks. But there's always exceptions.
Yep.
Some people are wired different.
They absolutely are. And the more you know yourself, the more dialed in you can get with these things and do things that a coach would never recommend. But point is, when in doubt, choose the thing that either scares you or you're not sure about with your fitness, rather than choosing the thing that you are best at if you want to test yourself and find out where your fitness resides.
Yeah. When it boils down to it, it's that simple. I mean, really.
Mm-hmm.
There's an interesting thing. I mean, I'm personally, and we're going to wrap this up in a second, but I'm personally in a phase where, like, I think I can reach both ends a little bit right now, but I don't feel terribly awesome about any of them, right? Like, I'm in the middle. I think I could go grind for an hour. I've just proven that. I think I could go run a respectable mile, but nothing that I'd be proud of. It's interesting where I'm just kind of like, there's probably a whole sector that just feels like I could do all right on all of them, but I'm not ready to nail any of it. And I don't know, maybe the scare you decision is tough. I guess if I had to dissect it for me, it would be going on the track and like running some real hard quarters. I feel like I actually can't fake those unless I'm ready for them. So maybe some really hard turnover work is the one thing that scares me right now. Like that matters. Like go run an all-out quarter and then do productive work afterwards. Good luck. I'd be like, cool. So I think that's my answer. What would be your answer?
Well, first of all, that's the thought process of someone who's in really good overall shape.
Maybe.
If you look and say, I could do both sides all right, you've been training really well.
Maybe
You're in a good place, which means now all you have to do is go on whatever race-specific work is needed for that race, and you're set.
Right.
You don't have to scramble to fill a bucket. Your buckets are pretty much topped off. You just got to go address whichever one. For me, it's like if you said you have any sort of distance, mile, 5K, half marathon, 50K. If you said you have any one of those coming up, and you got to choose one of two style workouts to do for the next 3 weeks before it, short and fast or long and grindy, it wouldn't matter which event it is. It's long and grindy for me. Because that's where I can't fake it, and that's where I'm going to get the most bang for my buck. For me, it's always that. I need very little short fast to be able to sharpen down to something short and fast. But if it was 1,000-meter reps, I would choose that for the mile over 200-meter reps. It just that's what I would have to do. That's where I would fade every time, and my form would crack, and my hamstring insertion point would start to really fatigue and hurt. It would always be choose the longer interval. You'd probably do one more rep than you want to do.
You'd probably be a really good candidate for like the split tempo setups. Where there's nuggets thrown in there, but short rest. Like I feel like that would be a good way to people who are scared of the long grindy stuff, like tricking you. Like, okay, I'm gonna run 10 minutes at threshold, only a minute rest, go into 4 by a quarter, rinse and repeat. Like things like that are honestly, I think pretty solid fitness builders, and they kind of trick you into it a little bit. You spend so much time in threshold anyways, and then you can build confidence and extend it out.
Yeah,
it's just interesting to think because we had such a wildly successful.
When I was at
split tempo or sort of a split tempo when we were together. Like I thought that was a wildly successful
You did.
session. No, you did as well. But go ahead before we wrap this up.
I'm just saying I didn't split the tempo. I did the first half of it. Anyway, but when I was at my absolute best, Kirk, that's when I started doing those. I had 2 out of every 3 workouts was a 2-part workout.
Right.
I had 3 big workouts I was doing. One was a version of chutes and ladders, and one was a split tempo, and the other was a split tempo. And one was, the first tempo was I would do something grindy in the mountains, and then I'd finish with intervals, threshold intervals. And the other, I'd start with threshold intervals, and then I'd go and do something grindy on the incline 1 or 2 times up and down that. But that's what it was. I would get 90 minutes of work in by doing 2 different 45-minute workouts. Or 2 different 25-minute workouts some days, but that was my way through it. The chutes and ladders was an 11-mile day for me. That was the only one where I just worked on the same thing over and over, because even that was interval style. But I just tried to double up what I was doing by splitting it, and that was my way through to get big mileage and quality. And it was very effective for me.
Of all the sessions I've ever run or prescribed, the most dreaded for me is still the chutes and ladders workout. I don't know, but that workout puts me into a place every time, maybe because climbing is a perceived weakness of mine, but chutes and ladders, Brakken's coined it. Basically, you can do many versions of it, but it's, I pick a 150-foot hill, up, rest at top, down, rest at bottom. Something about that workout smashes me every time. That's still probably the hardest workout if it's done on the right terrain, with the right amount of rest, with the right amount of reps. I don't know if any workouts put me there before. Chutes and ladders.
You're guaranteed to get to a bad place in that workout.
Always.
Because the limiter is basically you go until you can't, kind of.
And I'm such a good expender of energy. And that one I still overcook, and my reps generally fade the back half. And it's one of those things that eats at me because I can never quite figure out how to manage my effort perfectly, which I love about that workout. But that's courtesy of you.
And that's why I say go until you can't. The prescription is not go until you crack. It's we're trying to hit this many reps, but you have to stop when your time starts dropping off. Yep. And it's so hard to pace correctly that you basically are going until, I have to pull the plug because I can't keep this pace anymore. But yeah, that one, I was on a 9-day schedule at the time, 9 to 10 day. And I did that every 9 to 10 days for like a 2-month stretch. And it was that and split tempos and medium long runs. That was the whole training plan. And that was, again, the thing that I responded to the best, because all of it worked on that staying power, second half staying power.
I think split tempo work, no matter how you slice it up, intervals, or tempo, intervals, tempo, or back and forth a couple of times, I think that would probably bump the fitness needle the right direction, no matter what camp you fall into. If you're a grinder or short and spicy, it's like one of those fail safes, and the workouts can be segmented enough to help them go quickly. Of course, you can blow a gasket on those as easily as anything else, but I find they build confidence. All right, should we be done? Should we be done today, Brakken?
Let's be done today.
Hey, that was a nice embrace we had on social media in the Bulls uniform. Thanks for
that was good.
Consoling me in my time of need.
You're welcome.
One of our listeners, after talking about racing sick at Grandma's half last weekend, sent us a meme where it reminded him of the 97 Bulls or whatever, where
the flu game
where Michael Jordan had the flu and him and Scottie Pippen, I think it was, embracing after the game. Somebody sent us a meme with our heads on Jordan and Pippen saying my performance reminded him of the flu game, which I thought was hilarious. So I posted it and asked for reviews in the process. Figured I'd spin it.
It was great.
Yeah. All right. Enough babbling. We good?
We're good. I'm going to go hit some intervals, Kirk.
Hey, you going to go out easy? You going to go out hard? Or you going to go out right in the middle?
I'm going to build. It's 5 by 6 minutes. I'm going to go up a tenth or 2 of mile per hour each rep after probably 3.
The classic 5 by 6 minutes with 1 minute rest?
Yep, I did 10 by 3 minutes last week, so now it's 5 by 6 this week.
Love it. Go get it, dude.
This is butter and white bread. There's nothing fancy here.
And it's so good. See you, folks.